Hello, welcome. We hope you enjoy what you're about to watch. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Honey, could you grab the car keys? I parked on the street because the trash can was blocking the driveway. See if you can move it back and pull the car in. Ashley said this as she opened the front door with one hand, her purse balanced on her shoulder. She looked hurried, as if she wanted to shake off the day's routine as quickly as possible. Noah, who had been in the kitchen, answered yes and walked toward the living room. Her purse landed on the couch. He picked it up without much thought, unzipped the side pocket, and began searching for the keys. That's when, between the perfume bottle and her wallet, his fingers brushed against a neatly folded slip of paper. It was a receipt. At the top, printed in bold letters, was the name Hillside Bar and Grill, an expensive restaurant across town. Noah felt time slow to a crawl. The date on the receipt was from the night before. The time lined up perfectly with what Ashley had said was a late meeting at the office. He scanned each line carefully, as if looking for something hidden. 2 entrees. 1 bottle of wine. None of it made sense. Ashley always said she avoided wine during the week, claiming she was too focused and too busy for indulgences. And now this, an entire dinner for 2 at a place they'd never visited together. The paper trembled slightly in his hand, not from the air, but from what it suggested. He folded it back exactly the way it had been and slipped it into the pocket where he'd found it. Then he took the car keys and stepped outside. The trash can was still blocking the sidewalk in front of the garage. Noah dragged it back to its usual spot and parked her car smoothly. It was a task he normally did without thinking. But that evening, every movement felt heavy with meaning. When he returned inside, Ashley was already upstairs in the bathroom. The sound of the shower echoed through the house. Noah wandered into the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared inside for a few seconds without taking anything, then shut it again. Everything looked normal, yet something inside him had begun to stir, a feeling he couldn't quite name, but one he clearly felt. Ashley came back downstairs with damp hair, dressed in her usual worn sweats, and asked if he wanted to watch an episode of the show they always followed. Noah said, sure, but she was already on the couch, laughing at something on her phone. He sat next to her and tried talking about a problem he was having with a client at work. She replied casually, "That's crazy. You'll figure it out." The evening felt painfully routine. As the night went on, his thoughts stayed locked on that receipt. He forced smiles and tried to act normal, but every word she said felt rehearsed. Every laugh sounded distant. When she said she was tired and went upstairs to bed, Noah stayed behind in the living room. He sat there quietly. The ticking of the wall clock grew louder, and the house felt hollow. When he finally went upstairs, Ashley was already in bed, scrolling through her phone in the dark. He lay facing away from her, staring at the wall. But what he truly saw were fragmented memories and the uneasy sense that the small folded paper hinted at a story he wasn't sure he wanted to uncover. In the days that followed, Noah started noticing things differently. He didn't just listen to Ashley's words anymore, he listened to her tone, her pauses, how quickly she shut down conversations. Small phrases became warning signs. Things that once seemed harmless now felt staged. She claimed she was exhausted from work, yet her morning energy, new outfits, heavier makeup, and a sweet perfume he didn't recognize told a different story. He acted like he didn't see it, quietly storing each detail like a puzzle piece with no image yet. He watched her routine through a new lens. Wednesday mornings suddenly meant double the time in front of the mirror. Late nights at the office became more common. She texted with her face glowing from the screen, smiling to herself, always flipping the phone face down when he came near. She said she needed space, that stress was overwhelming her, that she didn't want long conversations during the week. She suggested they each focus on themselves for a while to clear their heads. The explanation sounded too smooth, as if it had been rehearsed. One morning, she rushed out, saying she had an off-site meeting. As soon as the gate closed behind her, Noah went straight to the bedroom, opened her drawer, and pulled out the planner she followed religiously. On that day's page, there was only a single red slash. Nothing else. That was strange, she never left a busy day empty. He put it back exactly as he found it and stood there silently, surrounded by the scent of her new perfume. That afternoon, Ashley returned home in a great mood, carrying takeout and telling a funny story about a coworker. She referred to them as he before quickly correcting herself to she. Noah said nothing. He pretended not to notice, just as he pretended many things that week, until he barely recognized himself in his own home. Weekends changed as well. Ashley started turning down simple plans, grocery shopping together, movie nights on the couch, visits to Noah's parents. She said she needed rest or had reports to finish. She spent hours in her room with the door partly open, headphones on, smiling at her laptop. She claimed she was hooked on a new show, but when Noah asked its name, she hesitated. Meanwhile, Noah barely slept. He lay awake listening to every sound, the creaks of the house, her footsteps, each tap of her phone. He no longer trusted moments of peace. Anxiety settled into his chest, tightening whenever she hugged him quickly, as if it were only an obligation. What hurt most was the absence of confrontation. It felt like she wasn't trying to keep their connection alive anymore, just going through the motions with the detachment of someone whose mind was already elsewhere, even while her body remained. One day, while Ashley was in the shower, Noah quietly opened her purse. Inside, he found a bright lipstick he'd never seen her wear at home and a pair of long earrings that didn't match her usual style. He sat on the couch for a few moments, holding them, trying to imagine who she became once she left the house. Then he put everything back, stood by the window, and felt that something had already slipped away, something he might never get back, even if he tried. When Ashley came out smiling as though nothing was wrong, Noah returned the smile. It was hollow, automatic, hiding a silent choice. He would keep watching. He would stop asking questions for now. That night became the breaking point. Noah lay awake staring at the ceiling until his eyes burned. His thoughts spiraled through endless possibilities, and for a moment, he wondered if the ground beneath him was still solid. The small lies, the empty smiles, the unfamiliar perfume, laughter that no longer included him, new pieces of a life that didn't feel like his. It was as if Ashley was fading away, replaced by someone he didn't know. The next morning, as she brushed her teeth, Noah simply watched her. The way she avoided his eyes in the mirror. The speed of her movements, as though being near him was a burden. She rushed out, talking about traffic, monthly goals, reports only she could handle. To Noah, it all sounded like excuses. That day, his choice was made. He needed answers, real ones. Not from Ashley, not the polished version she offered. That afternoon, he called his cousin Patrick. They'd grown up together and stayed close despite their different paths. Patrick had experience in private security and investigations, working both corporate and personal cases. Noah told him everything, her behavior, the strange details, the forgotten receipt. Patrick listened without interrupting. All Noah heard was steady breathing on the other end of the line. Finally, Patrick said, "Give me a week." For the next 7 days, Noah existed like a ghost in his own home. He spoke with Ashley as usual, responded when she talked, helped with chores, washed dishes, took out the trash. She acted normal, or tried to. But the way she guarded her phone, the tension on her face when he appeared unexpectedly, everything pointed to the widening distance between them. Sleep barely came. When it did, his dreams were filled with distorted voices, blurred images, locked doors. He woke drenched in sweat, throat dry, feeling as though he was being forced out of his own life. Still, a small part of him held on to hope. As foolish as it might have sounded, a part of him hoped it was all just one massive misunderstanding. On Friday evening, Ashley mentioned she was heading out with co-workers to celebrate a manager's birthday. Noah simply nodded. She slipped into a black dress he'd never seen before, paired with high heels and a delicate necklace he didn't even realize she owned. She looked incredible, but that beauty no longer felt meant for him. She gave him a quick goodbye kiss and left. He stayed behind, listening as the sound of her car disappeared, until silence filled the house again. Saturday morning came, and she was up early. She changed into workout clothes and left for the gym, something she'd been doing often lately. She kissed Noah lightly on the cheek, put in her earbuds, grabbed her water bottle, and walked out wearing new white sneakers. Moments after she left, Patrick sent a text, "Mind if I come by?" 15 minutes later, his car was parked out front. Noah opened the gate, his hand damp with sweat. Patrick stepped out holding a plain envelope, his expression serious. Without saying a word, he handed it over. Noah thanked him, went inside, and felt his heart pounding hard. Sitting down carefully in the living room, he opened the envelope and pulled out the photos. The first image showed Ashley entering a hotel, wearing the same black dress from the night before, beside a tall man with dark hair and well-tailored clothes. Both of them were laughing. The next photo showed her holding his hand. Another captured them hugging on the sidewalk as they waited to go inside. In the final shot, they were walking toward the reception desk, backs turned to the camera. Noah's stomach sank. The floor felt distant beneath him. His eyes burned, but he didn't blink. He stared at the pictures that turned doubt into certainty. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. The affair was undeniable, proven right before him. He stood, walked into the bedroom, grabbed a small suitcase, and began packing. He collected important documents, a toothbrush, his phone charger, and a sweater Ashley had bought him years earlier, the one he liked the most, ironically. He went downstairs, passed through the kitchen, and stopped in the living room. He placed the photos neatly on the coffee table, straight and impossible to miss. No note. No explanation. He didn't seek confrontation or demand answers. His leaving was quiet, but absolute. As he stepped through the gate and crossed the street with his suitcase, he felt something unfamiliar yet steady, control. He didn't know where he was headed, but he knew he wouldn't remain somewhere respect no longer existed. Hours later, Ashley returned home. The house was silent. She called Noah's name once, then again. When she realized he wasn't there, her eyes landed on the open envelope and the photos on the table. She stopped, frozen. Then she sat down on the couch, hands shaking, her face drained of color. 15 years went by. Time washed over Noah like a tide that didn't pull him under, but instead taught him how to stay afloat. He rebuilt his life at a pace his heart could manage. By chance, he met Megan in a small bookstore downtown. They reached for the same travel guide, and she smiled first. He hesitated, then spoke. Conversation followed. Coincidence turned into routine, routine into comfort, and comfort into family. Their son came next, now a teenager, carrying his mother's humor and Noah's eyes. That Monday morning, Noah and Megan walked through the front doors of their son's school, chatting about his report card and laughing about something he'd said at breakfast. They carried a folder of documents for a parent-teacher meeting, expecting nothing more than a standard discussion. When the receptionist led them to the assigned room, Noah continued talking until he stepped inside. His body reacted before his mind fully caught up. She was there. Ashley. He didn't say her name aloud, but the recognition hit him sharply. She stood near the table, posture still straight, but her face bore lines that hadn't been there before. Her skin looked paler, her eyes dimmer, her expression heavy despite the polite smile she tried to maintain. Her hair was pulled back simply, as if vanity had been replaced by exhaustion or the constant rush of life. Noah paused, stunned. Megan noticed immediately. One look told her this wasn't an ordinary meeting. Ashley didn't speak at first. She only motioned for them to sit. The room fell quiet. Papers were arranged neatly on the table, as though organization was her way of holding herself together. The meeting began, focused on their son's progress. Ashley spoke in a professional, measured tone, almost rehearsed. She praised his reading and writing, his responsibility, his kindness toward classmates. Everything was presented flawlessly. Yet every time she lifted her eyes from the papers or screen, they found Noah. When their gazes met, there was a pause, something unnamed. A memory, perhaps. A regret. Or simply the echo of all that was left unresolved. Megan noticed but didn't react. She remained calm, allowing that moment its space, understanding that old wounds, once healed, become scars, not threats. Ashley concluded the meeting by thanking them for being involved in their son's education, saying it made a real difference. Her voice wavered for a brief second, as though she remembered she'd never been able to say that about herself. After the breakup, Ashley endured a long stretch of uncertainty. She stayed at her job for a time, but gradually lost the spark that once defined her. Goals felt misaligned, promotions empty, relationships short-lived. She carried a quiet regret, heavy but unspoken. With no children and no lasting partner, her future felt distant and unclear. That was when she chose to change direction. She left the corporate world and enrolled in a teacher training program. She'd always connected well with kids and teens, and it gave her purpose. Teaching became her way back to something real, something human, perhaps even to the version of herself she'd lost. The classroom became her refuge. Though her smile never fully returned to what it once was, the small successes with her students gave her enough to keep going. Years passed, and she settled into this life. But some memories never disappear, they only fade into the background. That's why seeing Noah there, with another woman and a son who shared his last name, made the ground beneath her feel unsteady. Still, her presence in that room said everything. The guarded tone, the way she avoided saying his name, as if it might undo all she'd rebuilt. When Megan thanked her, Ashley managed a small nod. Noah offered a simple thank you, without anger, but filled with history. As they left, Noah held the door for Megan and glanced back. Ashley was already seated, straightening her papers, eyes fixed on the table. She didn't look up. She didn't watch them go. She continued on, like someone who had learned how to live with absence. In the parking lot, Megan stayed quietly beside Noah. His eyes were on the pavement, weighed down by a feeling that wasn't quite pain, but not relief either, the collision of past and present. He thought back to that moment in the meeting room, the way Ashley seemed afraid to say his name, like it might awaken something long buried. Megan got into the car first, still silent. That silence was her way of saying she understood without forcing him to explain. That was why he'd chosen her, someone who knew when words mattered and when they didn't. After he buckled his seatbelt, she reached over, gently touched his hand, and smiled. It was enough. All day, Noah couldn't shake the image of Ashley sitting there, papers neatly arranged, eyes avoiding his. Even during dinner, he kept thinking about how tired she looked, how hard she worked to stay composed with the weight of their shared past between them. He had moved on, but only now did that ending feel clear. At last, it felt like closure. He remembered leaving with that suitcase, unsure where he'd go. Seeing those photos. Feeling himself unravel. It all seemed like it had happened to someone else. What struck him most was realizing he'd survived it without becoming bitter. Choosing to walk away quietly, without revenge or resentment, had shaped the man he was now. That night, after their son went to his room, Megan motioned for Noah to sit beside her on the couch. No questions, just support. He settled in and finally said, "Today was strange." Megan nodded, inviting him to continue. He admitted it felt like watching his life from the outside, that something still stirred inside him, though he couldn't name it. She answered softly and simply. He had cared deeply once. And when we truly care, a part of that never disappears. It doesn't mean we haven't moved on, it just means we lived. Her words stayed with him because they were exactly right. He had lived. He had loved, been hurt, rebuilt, and now stood whole beside someone who understood him, even in silence. Later that night, while the world slept, Noah lay awake staring at the ceiling. Megan slept peacefully next to him. In that stillness, he realized his peace didn't come from avoiding pain. It came from choosing integrity, even when he had every reason not to. Ashley belonged to his past now, not as a ghost, but as a memory. A memory with a face, a voice, tired eyes, existing in a time no longer his. And maybe that was the greatest victory of all. Being able to look back without longing, without needing every answer, and without losing the ability to move forward with a light heart. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates. See you next time.